I'd see Taylor Lorenz posting about the Online Safety Act too. UK's new age verification laws are preventing anyone under the age of 18 from accessing information on Reddit about Israeli war crimes. Another example in how the goal of these kids' online safety age verification laws are really only about censorship. Okay, this is like kind of a... I understand the angle here. There is an angle here. However, this is oversimplifying. Obviously, there's a lot of Reddit posts about Israeli war crimes that I probably would not be okay with a child seeing, generally. Does that mean I would want government censorship to stop it? I don't know. But do I think children should be looking at videos of Gazan kids getting turned into red mist? No. No, not really. I don't think we need to do that. You don't know, you're such a cuck loser. Well, I think there should be some government enforcement. The way I'm leaning right now... here's my sort of ideal middle ground between safety, making sure people's feelings are, worries are assuaged, and freedom. Is government digital ID. That's the way the world's heading anyway. So that's got to be done. And all under 16s banned from social media. In the UK, here's a big problem. In the UK, at 16, pretty sure you can start driving lessons. You can vote, or 17, I think, driving lessons, I'm not sure. You can vote now. You can have sex with an adult. So why the fuck is the government telling you what you can and can't look at on the internet? That's ridiculous. If the government is saying you can operate as essentially a full adult in basically every other aspect of your life, thank you for the $5 bribe, bro. Thank you.
Payment for protection.
Yeah, you can drink with a meal. If the government is essentially treating you as an adult in every other aspect of life, I think you should be able to look at what you want on the internet. Now, under 16s, I don't think should be online pretty much at all. I don't think... I feel like you should have, school intranet systems and stuff like that to give them some understanding of how the internet functions so they can operate in society as an adult, but I don't think they should have full access. So that's the way I'm leaning right now. If you want to protect kids, do that. Also, additionally, I think there needs to be they do need to have enforcement and fines and blocking and stuff, but only it should be focused on transparency and accountability to public interest. So companies should have to basically report to governments how their algorithm functions, how they're serving content, what they prioritize, and there should be mechanisms from Ofcom or whoever to enforce a lot of things, like making sure they're not deliberately putting their finger on the scale of politics in a certain country, to make sure they're not serving harmful content to kids deliberately, or even sort of implicitly prioritizing that for children. Thank you for the raid, Dickers. To make sure they're... Yeah, all sorts of things. There's all sorts of ways that these companies could use recommendation algorithms. Banning as well. They should report about banning and make sure they're not over-banning for speech that we think, the public thinks, should be available on social media. It should go in both directions. These companies should be held accountable to the public interest. The way it's being done right now, though, is beyond fucked. So, I think that's totally reasonable. Wrong message. You can't argue with anything I just said. I think that's all totally reasonable. Ban all under 16s. How about we say no to both the companies and government requiring biometrics/EIDs? Which I'm sorry, it's over. That is the way the world's going to go, so you should advocate for a reasonable solution. Right now, we are in a situation where our government is forcing citizens, if they want to access the content they want to watch, to hand over their biometrics, create an electronic ID, essentially, with private companies. So we're heading that way. That's happening. I want the government to handle that because the government is accountable to the people, not accountable to shareholders or whatever the fuck. Okay? So I'm advocating for the reasonable solution in a world where the outcome is almost predetermined. I mean, or it is literally determined in the UK as of now. But it's in the hands of private companies. There's another tweet here as well. These censorship and age verification laws are going to be used to censor media and info coming out of Palestine, by the way. So this is just, like, not what's happening. But whatever. Exactly, this is the ultimate goal. The government doesn't actually care about protecting children online. I hope more people on the left can start to see this clearly and fighting against these bad internet bills instead of feeding fake moral panic about social media. I mean, I think, okay. You know what? I don't totally hate Taylor Renz for this. I think she's got a retarded reading of this, and anyone saying it's being used to censor evidence of Israeli war crimes, it's like, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. There's not like an active thing being done. As far as I know, Ofcom aren't actively going after people aside from just serving letters saying, hey, you haven't complied yet. You should comply. And you can make an argument about skewing towards censoring that stuff more because, I don't know, maybe the pro-Israeli media is more sanitized and accepted or something, so maybe there could be a bias in the info. Like, you can make some argument there. But I think the message I can fundamentally get behind. The left, hopefully, the left can see this clearly and fight against the bad internet bills instead of feeding fake moral panic. But it's not that what do you mean being used? You're applying an intentionality that isn't there, right? It isn't right as of now, it's not being used to do anything. There is always a chance it could be, but it's not being used to censor any specific outlook as of right now. Yeah, it's like, it's not the end of the world. It's using a hot button issue to smuggle the message, exactly. But I mean, there is just some inaccuracy there. Triggering me specifically. What else have we got here? Is there any other Online Safety Act stuff happening right now? Yeah, I do think digital IDs are inevitable. Yeah. They appeal to too many people. And most people just aren't going to see an issue with it. So I can have an ID on my phone. No one's going to see an issue with that. Not broadly. And when they sold it as a way to control immigration, a way to make sure your kids aren't getting hurt, it like appeals to literally everything. It's the way it's going to go. Sorry. Just is. Oh, this guy's good. Let's watch this guy.
Hi,
this guy's a right mess. Right mess, always wearing an ill-fitting t-shirt with this fucking crazy-ass neck hole, but usually has pretty good videos.
Phil, I like talking about politics, and a few days ago, a key provision of the Online Safety Act came into force. People around the country found themselves having to prove their identity to access certain content online. But due to people not entirely trusting the sites which provide that content, many decided to just use a VPN to get around the problem. VPN sign-ups were reportedly increasing by 1,400% in the first couple of days. So is this a problem, and is it something which may have caught the government out on? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So, midnight.
I honestly think we would have digital ID, but everyone freaked out about it during COVID. So,
July 25th, 2025, the internet in the
UK... As soon as it's not attached to like a big momentary issue like that, though, that's already poisoned, that it'll go through.
UK was supposed to change forever. The online environment, and especially social media, had become a Wild West. The only laws governing what we could access were passed in the 1980s. Years before most people had internet access, and certainly years before social media even existed. As always, successive governments have been playing catch up, and the Conservatives finally grasped the nettle and spent about 7 years developing some modern laws. Unfortunately, this 7-year period represented some of our most unstable periods of government, with like 4 or 5 different prime ministers, a revolving door of secretaries of state, which meant that the end result was a bit of a pig's breakfast. Experts were not shy about saying so when this was passed 2 years ago. It was widely acknowledged that more would need to be done, but now it's against a backdrop of an insane and vengeful US president who views any moves to regulate the online space with deep suspicion. The Online Safety Act promised to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online. But in that very same hour, something else happened. Something the government may or may not have planned for. One VPN provider, Proton VPN, had reported that sign-ups from inside the UK shot up by over 1,400%. Not really a small niche protest, is it? That's a digital rebellion, isn't it? It's a massive, instant and stunningly simple rejection of one of the most controversial laws, shall we say, in like the past few years. This is the story of how a single simple tool is challenging what is effectively £1 billion law. What it means for privacy, what it means for the UK's grand plan to ultimately protect children may just create a
Pig's breakfast is just like a mess. You know, you're making a mess of it.
new problem. So what exactly is this Online Safety Act? So on paper, the aim of it is something like no one's really going to argue against. It's protecting kids and vulnerable people from harmful content online. After years of back and forth, the government and the regulator Ofcom decided on a solution, a new legal framework which puts the responsibility on social media companies. And the public approve of that, as well as search engines and, of course, any site with user-generated content, so that you can shield particularly children from things like pornography, self-harm content, other material that is causing material harm to children. You know, the part that kicked in on July 25th and has caused a lot of fuss is the enforcement of what is certainly highly effective age checks. The old days of just ticking a box going, yes, I'm over 18. That's gone. Now, any site hosting adult content or content deemed harmful to kids has to put up real robust age gates. And what does robust mean? Well, Ofcom gave a few options. You could use the camera for facial age estimation. AI will take a look at you and go, yeah, you look like you're over 25 to me. Or you might have to provide your credit card details for a check, or upload a photo of your driver's license or passport. Major platforms, even ones you might not think of, have started to comply with this. There's been reports on things like Reddit and Blue Sky of people being locked out of mature content or even their own direct messages until they prove their age. And thousands of websites that host adult material have begun rolling out these new measures. The government and Ofcom have argued this is a vital step. They point to a lot of very worrying statistics about online harm. It's very real. There was a report from a charity, Internet Matters. They found that just before the law came into effect, you had about 77% of kids in the UK between 9 and 17 years of age have experienced some form of harm online. That's an 8% jump from the year before. So from their point of view, what this is, it's about protecting children. You know, they say the systems are designed with privacy in mind. The adult sites don't get your ID. They just get a yes or no from a verification service. And I'm going to say, so I personally am a believer in responsibility going hand in hand with freedom. So any law, of course, constricts your freedoms. And that will also include potentially the freedoms of people who are just, you know, doing something perfectly innocently. But the idea is that a law should have some net good for society. So what is the justification for this restriction? And sometimes it may restrict people, as I say, from genuinely harmless activities. But here we do have a genuine problem with children accessing content.
We've just allowed a further about what kids see online to take hold quietly. It's not just coming from old people either. Like, sorry, stating. There's some content I think is legitimately, actively harmful, and ways of engaging with content that are actively harmful. The whole TikTok strip show thing that was in that lawsuit, like last year, for instance. Where basically they were saying that there were like these endless streams where underage girls were being paid in like the TikTok bits equivalent shit to like strip on TikTok Live and shit. And because of the recommendation algorithm, it basically made it so, you know, some pedophile or whatever could go on there and just get recommended endless kids and just keep throwing money at them. And that was in some lawsuit. That's like obviously harmful to kids. Having a setup like that obviously can't continue. Another one is like the hardcore eating disorder, self-harm, all that encouragement stuff. That warps kids. I think that's shown. Especially teenage girls seem to be especially vulnerable to seeing content like that. But then, like, people want to act as though just the average sort of like unsupervised growing up internet experience is like super harmful. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I'm not just saying this as a, oh, well, I grew up on 4chan and yeah, I'm not doing that gay shit. I just literally don't see anyone. Like, I know, everyone I grew up with was showing each other crazy shit on their phones. They were sending around crazy fucking videos. We're going on shock sites every time we had a computer and privacy. People pulling up Lemon Party on school computers. People pulling up Meat Spin on school computers. People want to pretend. Like, so many people have taken the just like total dogmatic mindset that seeing any kind of like extreme type content like that for it's like it's over. They put out this big statement the other day. It's like, we failed a generation of kids who grow up online. And I just don't see that it's that fucking crazy. I don't see all these issues. I just don't see it.
Which is warping their own sense of self-worth and relationships with others. It's incredibly damaging. So, in theory, I'm fine with a system which protects kids from certain types of content if it means a bit of extra hassle for adults who want to access that content. You know, and also I'll say, like, I'm online a lot. I've not been asked to verify my age for anything. So I'm not sure what you guys are looking up if you're being clobbered. And also, no, I've never used a VPN. I'm a good boy. But that is my view. Other people have a different view, especially as there are genuine fears that the system is designed not as securely as people would like. You know, people may think to themselves, okay, it's all right saying that site doesn't get my details, but there's a verification service here. How do I know that my details are not going to be leaked? Because we've had lots of stories over the last few years of private data being hacked and being leaked online. And that's where the whole plan starts to come apart a bit. Because while the government was building these digital walls, what a lot of people did was immediately find a digital rope ladder. The public's reaction wasn't exactly full acceptance. It was quite a loud, resounding and technical, no thank you. The number that tells the whole story comes from Proton VPN. As I say, it's a privacy service. They've clocked an hourly increase in new UK signups over the first couple of days of like over 1,400%, starting the moment the law went live. And I've
this guy, I said this guy looks a fucking mess, dude.
Basically gone. They've tried to access something. Oh, yeah, I'm not doing that. VPN. Google Trends data shows the same sort of story. Searches for the term VPN absolutely blew up. So it's not just about one thing here. Like, privacy advocates and just ordinary people are concerned about this law. Critics have called the age checks methods invasive, you know, a bit of a privacy disaster. So and creating a new security risk. As one person put on the BBC, I saw, it's like, okay, yeah, I can give my sensitive information to some random unproven company, or I can use a VPN.
Thanks.
And the fear is fairly simple. Forcing loads of websites to handle extremely sensitive personal information creates a potential target for hackers. So, you know, companies who, for example, run adult sites have already said that these checks are ineffective. They're fairly haphazard. They're quite dangerous. They've argued that they actually put users' safety at risk. Now, there's an extent to which any company that has to go to a load of hassle like this is going to really egg it on. But, you know, they've also pointed out, some people have pointed out that you've had similar laws passed in some United States, and all users did was just move to non-compliant, less safe websites as well. And what we've seen in this country is this massive rush for VPNs, which demonstrates a breakdown of trust, because a lot of people would be seized of the need to protect children online, but they're looking at it and going, okay, you know, I could go to the hassle of uploading this photo or whatever it is, but I don't trust it, so I'm going to use a VPN, which suggests that there is a huge number of people in the UK who are more concerned by the solution than they are of the problem, particularly as that problem doesn't affect them personally unless they are a parent. You know, a spokesperson for this Proton VPN was saying that the surge is showing that adults are concerned about the impact age verification laws have on their privacy. You know, it was an immediate, widespread move. It's not something where there's a bit of a trickle and then as people caught on or heard about it. This was instant, an instant move to just get VPNs, sign up for VPNs. And it shows that the public are not seeing it as a safety measure. They're seeing it as a encroaching on their personal privacy and online freedom. You know, so the government suddenly found itself in a bit of a digital standoff. So it's built this fortress, very effective for what it needs to do, but the public has just been handed a key to the side gate. And that key works for anyone. So in terms of how a VPN works, how does this make these expensive, complicated age check systems pretty much obsolete? Very, very simply, a VPN works by creating a secure, encrypted route for your internet activity. Routes your connection through one of its own servers somewhere else in the world. So to a website you visit, you're not browsing from the UK. You might be sat in the UK, but you could be from Paris or New York or Tokyo, as far as the site is concerned. So since the Online Safety Act's age checks are triggered by a user being in the UK, it's just UK law, just telling the internet, no, I'm not in the UK, I'm in Morocco, that makes the law vanish. So for the user, the age gate pop-up just never appears. It's a clean, effective, perfectly legal
UK's getting their own version of Weibo soon. It is feeling a bit Chinese, isn't it? It is feeling a little Chinese.
Experts are aware of it. Ofcom have said, yes, this is a huge challenge. They've stated that it will be illegal for platforms to encourage people to use VPNs to get around the checks, but people know about them. You know, there was a solicitor who...
Wait, guys, sorry, I've just been informed. Everyone, it's time to listen and learn. A software engineer is speaking. Okay, guys, a software engineer has finally spoken out on this issue. Expert opinion. I want to hear it.
Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and ladies and gentlemen, we have got to talk about this crazy censorship problem that we are dealing with. Now, the last, I want to say like several days, weeks, it almost feels like there's a concerted effort with every single large entity trying to censor everything they can on the internet. We've seen Steam take away a bunch of Gunner games, which granted, you know, we're on the fringe end of people caring. But then you start to see itch.io delisting a bunch of games, even one of the most popular games, Mouthwashing, because it dared to be a little bit more mature of a video game. And speaking of other horror games, games like Vile Exhumed, a horror title that focuses on parasocial relationships and some
okay, but they didn't have to do that,
wild,
did they?
real things.
I just checked it, and Steam haven't removed mouthwashing.
People have to deal with, simply because it's mature, ends up getting removed entirely off of Steam. So that's wild. And in other things, Xbox has also thrown in age verification to social services. So yeah, it seems as if using a verifying yourself through facial recognition or showing identification is mostly going to be a thing in parts of the world now. But of course, we've also seen in the last couple days, the United Kingdom has passed the Online Safety Act. And,
Not passed, implemented. It was passed in 2023. Fucking idiot.
I think it doesn't end there, ladies and gentlemen. I really do think that the next stage in this is VPNs, okay? Trying to take down the little amount of freedom that human beings get to have in the world. So I want to kind of keep this pretty much as like a brief and sort of focused as I can. So a couple of years ago, the actual organization Ofcom, for instance, which would be, you know, overseeing the regulations of this current Online Safety Act, in 2022, the government over here urged that the government would consider a crackdown on VPNs. Okay, so this is before this law had actually passed. Now, why would they talk about VPNs? For anybody that doesn't know what a VPN is kind of like an encrypted tunnel that you can basically use to obfuscate where you are on the internet, right? So for instance, being in Canada, I can use a VPN and connect myself to the United States. And in theory, for most of the websites that I'm visiting, they'll probably think that I'm from a United States.
This guy knows a lot about this, doesn't he? This guy knows a lot about this. He must have some really specialized knowledge.
IP. Now, it's not entirely as clear-cut and simple, but we'll get into it. So
this guy's so knowledgeable. Does he have a degree? Does he have a degree in this?
The people researching this, they're commonly used to bypass regional locks on content, obviously. And of course, one of the actual MPs in this situation said there are vital problems in the bill. And the real threat is the use of virtual private networks. VPNs could
Really? It's like the 6th time in the last 3 months. And we will be covering it. Okay, trust me. Not all of it. Not all 3 hours. Fuck that.
Undermine the effectiveness of these measures. So basically, they wanted to kind of have another sort of clause. So one clause that was brought in would require the Secretary of State to publish within 6 months of this bill's passage a report on the effect of VPN use on Ofcom's abilities to enforce the requirements. Now, I can already tell you, you don't have to go fast forward 6 months from now. I'll tell you, the absolute case where VPNs are affecting this is probably guaranteed. For instance, Proton VPN, one of the free VPN options people have to sort of bypass a lot of these shitty UK laws that have passed, this saw a surge of like 1,000%. Okay, so overnight, people in the United Kingdom were suddenly Googling, how the fuck do I get this VPN thing and how do I use it to get past a lot of these blocks? So if you go to Proton VPN, their free option is like obviously 100% free. You can secure one of your devices, you get medium VPN speeds. But if you scroll down a little bit, you'll start to notice that the option people really want to get onto is probably the $5.49 option. And that's because you can actually do things like streaming videos, which I imagine people want to stream certain videos that they can't because...
Yeah, exactly. You can only make it more and more prohibitive, right? You actually can't really ban VPNs. Period. Like, you can start forcing the big companies that offer VPN services to require ID or whatever, but you will always be able to set up a VPN somehow. Past, like without ID.
The government says no. And of course, unless of course you provide your identification, which hopefully that doesn't get hacked down the road. I mean, everyone can hope. And then of course, if you want to do things like BitTorrent, basically they've blocked everything from the free option that people would absolutely probably want to use. So you probably want to get the paid situation. Now, the reason why the VPNs are going to be targeted is because this is probably the easiest way for any of you guys to bypass any of these online safety acts. So again, the people of the United Kingdom made a petition, which again has gotten 362,000 signatures, called Repeal the Online Safety Act. So the law goes into effect, and by the way, this law has been cooked up for a while. It goes into effect, people are like, oh my god, this actually is more censorious than I thought. You know, this is getting rid of basically all forms of free and open internets, right? You know, you can't look at things like protest footage, you can't share, things on the internet because they might be harmful or damaging to children, right? You'll have to provide government ID to actually view a lot of things in the world that should not be censored. If you live in a free society, you should be able to basically see whatever you want without the government basically putting in as much friction as they can between you and the truth. So of course, the government responded to all of these signatures, which they're not a small amount of signatures, by the way. Even campaigns like Stop Killing Games have not blown up as fast as something like Online Safety Act and the repealing of it. So the government says, by the way, the government has no plans to repeal the online over the their
Get to the point.
thing. It'll cause systems to almost, get rid of things that, marginalized communities ultimately do need. Okay, if you think that censorship works in just one direction, you are severely mistaken. As long as you give people the power to censor one thing, they will...
Apparently Nicandros and Harmful Opinions found a bunch more crazy Muta shit.